All right, folks, it is definitely another warm day here in Durham, North Carolina. We're going to see what's going on in the world where my guests are. I think one of the guests that they make it in is coming from Durham as well, but we're going to see what folks got on their mind and what's happening in their world and all along those lines. But it's definitely been warm. Some people have been following sports and following other things as well, but it's definitely been a little bit on the warm side, and definitely it's been a little bit on the hot side and everything like that. But we did have some torrential downpour last night as well, because I know that I took a brief nap after coming back from the cultural arts center that I work at, and when I woke up, I was going like, "Oh, that sounds like a very torrential downpour." And I looked outside, and surely enough, it was a torrential downpour. So it was definitely some of that weather that was going on as well. But yeah, lots going on, and we're always glad to have different guests come in from all kinds of parts of the world. And as I was telling in one of my presentations, that I was recruiting some of my guests, and all along those lines, I was letting Edie, and I'm going to make sure that I got that pronunciation right, and all along those lines, that I'm a fan of otters. As a matter of fact, my friend and acquaintance Nicole had written a book for me called The Otter Tales. And when I had told her that, because I just think that otters are really cool animals, and that they definitely love to clean themselves, and they love to look like they're having playful times all the time. And maybe we need to be more playful like the otters. I think that's kind of the notion that Edie is talking about, and all along those lines. Because every time you look at them, they look like they're having a playful time. I'm sure they have some serious things going on in their world as well. Probably get stressed out from the humans and everything like that. But we're going to find out what Edie's got to say. And I've also got Sue with me as well. But I'm going to start with Edie, and we're also going to see if at some point or another, my friend that does designs of chairs doesn't come in as well. But how are you doing? And did I pronounce the name right? I can never remember whether it's Eddie or Edie or how it's pronounced and everything like that. But how are you doing? And tell me about this otter therapy, because I'm going like, this just sounds like a wonderful idea. And like I said, otters always seem like they're being very playful. But then again, I know that sometimes our house pets, like cats and dogs, seem like they're being playful. As a matter of fact, I was watching an Instagram where a cat greeted the mailman that was coming to the door, and the mailman said that it almost sounded like the cat was saying hello. And then the owner came out and was like, basically like, yeah, it's a friendly inside out cat. So it was greeting the carrier. I think it might have been delivering an Amazon package or something like that. But it was a cute little Instagram post that I saw earlier this morning and everything like that. So how are you doing? And will you refresh my memory as to which part of the world you're in and everything like that?
Okay, great. Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Eddie, so pronounce Eddie like boy's
Right.
name. And then I live in Carmel by the Sea, so it's a Central California, about 2 hours south of San Francisco, and by the sea. So since you mentioned how hot it is over there, I just checked, and our temperature right now is 64 degrees, and that's our typical summertime. And we hardly ever go above 80. Actually, for that matter, we hardly ever go above 70 degrees. So this is our typical summer, and people from around the country just come here to kind of cool off things. And people from North Carolina, Texas, Florida, Arizona, they just kind of flock in here. Okay,
I
so
might have to, I might have to go visit you and everything like that, because I know that I've got a friend that just came visiting from California. He's actually a filmmaker. He did the film This Christmas, and his family lives in Hillsborough, North Carolina. So he came by, as he oftentimes does during the course of the year and everything like that, to check up on his family. And I think he said he'll be back in either August or September. But he did make a visit of last weekend. As a matter of fact, this past week he was in town, and then I saw him on what's happening, other things, and he was heading back to your neck of the woods, because he does have to make those movie deals, and a lot of times those are done in LA, not necessarily central of
mhm.
California where you are, but definitely a lot of those movie deals are done there. And he's been in the industry, I want to say, for about 20, 25 years. So he's been in the game for a while. But yeah, it's definitely a fascinating part of the world. And I've yet to get to California. The furthest west that I've gotten
Oh,
has
really?
been Las Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas. There was a young lady that I was dating, and she was living in Vegas at the time, and I think she's still in the Vegas, Arizona area. But we hooked up right before the pandemic. But that's the furthest west that I've been. I've yet to get to California or Washington State or any of those other fun places.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if you get to Las Vegas, we're only about an hour away.
Okay.
So yeah, next time you can come to California, and coastline is much cooler, but inland it could be really hot, like 100 degrees. So, and around Monterey, Carmel area, they make lots of movies too. So actually, there was used to be a movie tour. You can get on the bus and go to different places. Movies were shot. And yeah, the COVID killed it. But before that, we were able to see all the sites that different movies were made.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I know one of the things you talk about is this notion that people like to go on vacation. I'm going to bring in some of our other guests as well, and it's supposed to help us recharge. That's the notion of vacations and everything. But you bring up this notion that some people arrive back home from vacation feeling just as stressed as when they left. And vacation is supposed to be escaping the stress, but sometimes you wind up being just as stressed. And you say that there's things that we need to do. And I love this notion you say that you believe joy isn't something we find after everything slows down. It's something we can practice in the middle of everyday life. And I do wish that I would do more of that. And like I said earlier, I love going outside. I've got this Merlin app, so I love hearing the birds and having the birds identified, watching the butterflies, occasionally even seeing a rabbit, and definitely getting to observe Mother Nature. Even where my mom lives in Rocky Mountain, she has a whole family of turkeys and a whole family of deers that she observes sometimes as well. So that's what she does to relax, is observing them, and I'm sure they're observing her.
Right. Yeah, we got lots of nature. We got rabbits, deers, turkeys, and otters. So that brings me back to otters. And just a quick background. I haven't been an artist that long. Mostly, I've been a nurse practitioner, so I've been in healthcare for over 30 years. Well, close to 30 years. And then when I transitioned, I didn't know, I learned how to paint over the past 15 years or so. I started to take in one class per semester as sort of a burnout prevention. Because healthcare is kind of getting more difficult because it's more computer based and kind of taking joy out of healthcare these days. At least that's my perspective, and I share that perspective with the many colleagues who started to get burned out or depressed. So that's part of the reason I took art classes, one class per semester, for about 12 years when the hospital said you have to come back to full time, because I cut back to part time to do more art and try to get away from the kind of a very restricting healthcare system. But then when they say, oh, you have to come back to full time, so I said, no, I can't do that anymore. So I just jumped into becoming an artist full time, and not knowing business, sales, or marketing or anything like that. I could paint, but I didn't know how to sell. So there was a little transition, but that all changed when I found sea otters. I could paint portraits and landscapes and still lifes, but as soon as I started painting sea otters, like yourself, everybody loves otters because they just make you smile. They're so goofy, looking goofy, although they are really hardworking animals, but they're just kind of floating on their back and then kind of eating dinner or lunch or breakfast on their tummy, cracking shells on their chest and have their baby on their belly. So they look like a really playful, adorable creatures. So I started painting otters in general, and that started to sell already. But then I had a really kind of fortunate incidents that one lady, actually she's a sea otter researcher, and she actually is from Las Vegas, and she asked me to do this on my your right, maybe my left. So this sea otter in the and the background of the Scream, Edward Munch or Munch's Scream painting. So I did that. She wanted me to change the face into otters instead of human face. And I did that. She loved it. I loved the concept. So this is about 2 years ago. I started to painting sea otters in the context of famous paintings. You see Mona Lisa, you see a girl with a pearl earring. I have other Last Supper, I have American Gothic, I have Van Gogh, Dali, and so on. I have probably about 30 or 40 famous paintings with the otter face. And also, I do some cultural icons. Like, let's see, who do I have? I have Albert Einstein. I have Clint Eastwood. I have Audrey Hepburn. Type of, just very, recognizable people. Just change the face into an other, but they like Albert Einstein. It has a really wild hair, so it's very recognizable. So when I started painting those, and not thinking it was therapeutic or anything, but just because it was fun. And then about the same time, about when I started painting others in those contexts, I opened a gallery in Carmel by the Sea. And, so since I'm new to this, I don't know much about gallery business, but I just put up the others in the windows and people just, laughing, cracking up, looking at that, oh, that's the Mona Lisa with the otter face. And people laughing outside and coming and still laughing. And they say, oh, I feel better. I feel much better. I feel happier. You crack me up. So I started to have those positive feedback, and the more I paint, the more I get positive feedback, and pretty soon I started to have this kind of comments like, your others really make me feel better, happier, and actually healing. And I'll take my, some people take my other, either print or original or even postcards. They take them home and they put it on a refrigerator or walls or whatever they buy and to come. And then, your others keep me company and I feel less lonely. I live alone, but your others keeping me company make me smile every time I walk by it. And finally, one lady who lives alone and she became a really big fan of my otters. She bought 10 otters, small prints, and she had it all around her bed. And she had a major surgery, knee replacement surgery, and it wasn't going well after the surgery, so it was in a lot of pain. And then, so I didn't hear from her for like 3 months, and finally I heard from her. And she said, I have been really having a hard time after the surgery, but your others made me smile and made me feel less pain and kept me company, and your others were healing. So your others helped me recover from this surgery. So when I heard that, I'm going to name this collectively otter therapy because they seem to have some healing elements. And that really goes well with my origin of, in the healthcare profession. So that's the part when I moved to the art, I was kind of lacking that, I wish I could help people like I did in a hospital. But now that people are telling me, oh, your others are healing, make me happy. So those two together, so now I can paint, be creative, and also these are helping people and be happy and smiling and maybe feel less lonely or less stressed. So I kind of came full circle, as an artist, and also kind of healing in small ways. So that's basically art therapy in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that's art therapy, and I love art therapy. I'm going to bring in a gentleman that's a friend of mine, and he actually does a lot of work around art as well. He actually designs chairs, and he does a lot of other work as well. But I'm going to bring him in and hear what he's got to say about what he's been doing, because he actually does, and his email is wedochairs@gmail.com and everything like that. But I'm bringing in Michael Hill and find out when he got involved in chairs, because I knew that he's been doing it for a while. He's also a well-known DJ here in the area and all along those areas. So I'm going to bring him in. I'm also bringing in Sue in a little bit as well, but definitely want to bring in Michael and hear some of his thoughts around this notion of otter therapy, and definitely just the notion of art as a healing tool, because I know that you use art as a healing tool, even to talk about some issues, because you were talking about with your art exhibit, race relations, and even some of the murders that are going on here in Durham and everything like that. So definitely just share with Eddie and others. I'll bring Sue in a little bit as well, how you got involved in art and what art means to you in the healing process and everything like that. Because it sounds like you're very similar to what Eddie's doing in the sense of using art as a therapy tool.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Good. I have seen your otter artwork. I've seen your otter artwork before, so I'm amazed. And I'm also very thankful to be online with you to actually meet you, because I've seen your artwork. Yes, I've seen your artwork.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Arkansas, I've been living in North Carolina about 30 years. So for a long time, I would drive back and forth to visit my parents in Arkansas from here, which is about a 14 or 15 hour ride. So I had a lot of time to think and reflect, and just kind of, be with nature and be by myself. So during that time, I had a chance to really go ahead and, just kind of go get into my, my happy place. I like to travel. So I heard you mention Las Vegas. So 2019, me and my family drove from here to Death Valley, and we stayed about 8 days in Las Vegas. So we have had a chance to kind of visit the whole country. We've been to 48 states by car. So that's, so all we have left is Alaska and Hawaii, but of course not by car for Hawaii, but we've had a chance to really have a chance to learn about the country, learn about different cultures, different people, and kind of get a chance to, and even then I'm really kind of using my creativity, even then to kind of learn different cultures and how they are reflected in the local artwork.
That makes sense. Hey, Michael, just really quickly, I had a couple of questions for both you and Eddie and everything like that. But one of the questions I had is, I'm of the opinion that we are more similar than we are dissimilar, even though there's a lot of times that our politicians make it seem like we are further and further apart. There's the whole divide around orientations and race and cultures and everything like that. But you and your family have traveled to 48 states. So I'm just wondering, do you think that we are more we are dissimilar, or is that just me being Shangri-La and maybe a little bit of an optimistic viewpoint and everything like that? But you've traveled the country, and I'm thinking that we probably have more similarities than we do dissimilarities.
We do. I mean, we are so much alike. If you were to close your eyes and just listen to a person, you really could not, understand. You couldn't be able to guess where they were from, because we've been to, through Navajo country, out in Arizona, up to Seattle, across Montana, and everybody that we have met have all been nice, wonderful, pleasant people. So yes, you're right. We have a whole lot more in common than we do, apart.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Eddie, what's your take on that? Do we have more in common than we do separate? You're definitely of the Asian culture and everything along those lines, but sometimes people try to divide us based on our cultures, our ethnicities, our races, and things along those lines. But I'm thinking that we probably have a lot more in similarities than we do dissimilarities. And one of the places where we oftentimes can't really even pay attention to what somebody is in the medical field, because you don't really care who your doctor is. You just want to make sure that they're giving you good care, and the same with your nurses and all along those lines. But I just wanted your take on this notion of the divide.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look under the skin, you just look at the your skeletons and organs, and inside the body, you cannot tell that there's no race, there's no, there's no skin color or hair color, the eye colors, and none of that matters. We have the same organs, same eyes, ears, nose, and blood circulates, and the heart has to pump, and it's so similar. And for that matter, we are not that different from many mammals, many animals. I don't remember the number, but our genes, DNAs are very similar to pigs and all those animals too. So that's why we can transplant the heart from pigs or orangutans, or before baboons, before we were able to do the organ transplant from cadaver humans. So we're so similar. And we were using, the cows and the insulin before we were able to synthesize the human insulin too. So we're just so similar, but just kind of superficial. I think it's kind of a similar human nature that we want to divide from others, just so we can, that person's certain group can feel superior to others, just to make them feel a little bit better. Oh, I don't know, my skin is lighter than yours, or whatever that criteria might be. It's interesting. I'm an anthropology major before I came to nursing field. But we have so many different criteria for beauty around the world. Some people think the longer the neck, the beautiful, the smaller the feet, the beautiful, or the longer the head, the skull, the more beautiful. So that's so arbitrary too. It's just cultural and transient. So I 100% agree with you. We are just more similar than different.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Hey, Michael, and then I'm gonna bring in Sue and hear about her work with Patrick Swayze, and maybe you've got a Patrick Swayze otter as well. But just really quickly before that, how did you get involved in doing chairs? Because I think when I first met you, you were definitely involved with your church and all along those lines, and you were definitely involved with your DJing. But then over the last several years, you've definitely started doing these very intricate chairs that are talking about African American culture and all along those lines. So how did you get involved in this notion of using chairs as an artistic art form?
Yeah, well, during COVID, I had a lot of time, on my hands. So I was already in upholstery. I was running a local upholstery shop. So I was already doing chairs, and also being in the company. But so I just started using my creativity. So I had a chair that was sitting in my garage, and I, put the paint on it, and then the paint turned into stands. So the stands that we had for COVID, like 6 feet distance, all those kinds of stands, I put on the chair. I had support, support our men and women, on the front line. All those kinds of stands were all on a chair. So that was kind of the first chair that I did.
Gotcha. That was
that was during COVID,
Gotcha.
And so also 2019, Durham was celebrating its 150th celebration.
Right.
So the year before that, we had taken a trip to South Dakota. So I had a chance to kind of see the Western and how they incorporated some of the Indian designs in their clothing. So I wanted to do something using my chair and kind of tie all that together. So what I did was I just had a chair that I put some items on, and then that chair turned into I had some items that I had found around Durham that were associated with the city, like the National Championships, Hayti Community Center, which is the Black Center of Town, Duke University, North Carolina Central. All those things were local to town, and I had items for each one. So I just kind of made my piece be incorporated all those items into one expression of my homage to the Boer City.
Yeah, that makes sense. You also did one that has if I remember correctly, there's kind of a celebration of what's going on with Black Lives Matter and everything like that as well. So share a little bit about that chair as well.
Sure. So what I did was after listening to the 1619 project, I kind of came up with, okay, all right, so let's go back to, and I kind of did the research. And what I did was I said, all right, so from August the 20th, 1619, since there was a little discrepancy with the actual dates, I just chose the 20th of August. So from the 20th of August, 1619 to January 20th, 2025 was when I did my show. That was 148,085 days that blacks have been in the United States, in America, on the ship, the White Lion. So out of that day, so I said, well, I just break up our time here in the number of days. That way you kind of get a sense of just how long that we've been, in the United States under the different aspects of life here. So on the chair, I chose to kind of talk about all the things that African Americans have been suffering from, such as mass incarceration, drug abuse, cigarettes cigarette intake back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. All of that. So all of that is incorporated in the chair. So I have items like I have a ball and chain that's tied to the chair. So that talks about the Jim Crow era when people were on chain gang. I have a piece on there where the chair is circled by barbed wire. Okay, so the barbed wire also kind of talks about the incarceration. I have drug paraphernalia that can that are just kind of tied to the chair that kind of talks about the drug abuse and drugs that and the crack cocaine and the epidemic that was back earlier. So I'm trying to think of all the things I have on there. It's so many things. Oh, the chair is there. There's an 8-foot body that's a chalk line that a police put down a dead body on the street. There's an 8-foot chalk line body that I have that the chair is sitting on top of. So when people see the chair, it's kind of all the things are negative in a sense of the struggles, but I wanted to kind of put that in context so people kind of see all of that into one piece.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm bringing in Sue. Sue has done a lot of research around Patrick Swayze and everything like that, the great actor and who passed away not that long ago and everything in that space, but he was definitely known for Dirty Dancing as well as a number of other movies as well. But you've been keeping his memory alive, and I'm sure that his family is glad about that and all along those lines. So share a little bit about what you've got going on, because I think that there's supposed to be a remake of one of his shows coming up in the not too distant future and all along those lines. Ted, maybe Miss Eddie can do a otter of Patrick Swayze, and maybe Michael can do a chair around Michael Swayze as well. So definitely tell her a little bit about what you've got going on also.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks so much, Mark, for having me on. Yes. And I did want to comment, listening to your other guests, that Patrick Swayze obviously was a big supporter of the arts and how that can bring people together and, just all the positives of that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Dirty Dancing, which came out in 1987, which started my interest in Patrick Swayze. And shortly after the movie was out, Barbara Walters did her first interview with Patrick. That was way back, 1988. After that interview, I was like, this guy is not only so talented, he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys. He's humble, he's genuine. He wrote down about his father's death and this and that and the other. So I became a follower since then, 1988. I happened to find his, at the time, official international fan club. I know that sounds like kind of hokey, but it was a super good experience. I joined it around 2010. I'm sorry, it was way before that, because he passed in 2009. But anyway, I still have friends from the club, and I started writing articles for the magazine because Patrick showed up here in Detroit twice. He was doing a fundraiser for Complexions Contemporary Ballet. And after that, as part of the fundraiser, after the dance concert, he signed autographs, he took pictures and all that. And after I met him in person, I was even a bigger fan. So eventually, you see, I was working as a psychiatric social worker. I did that almost 40 years, retired in 22. But while I was working, I started writing books. I had written the articles for the club, and they seemed to go over well, and I really enjoyed that. And so I've got 5 books out since then. But getting back to Dirty Dancing, I mean, that was 39 years ago. In August will be when it came out. Now, they've been talking about a sequel to the movie since about 2020. So that's like 6 years. And now they still say Jennifer Grey, who played Baby, in the original. You guys probably saw the movie, right?
Yes.
So anyway, she's on board to star again and be one of the executive producers. I read somewhere there's not a lot of information out about it online, but I did read they're trying to time it with the 40th anniversary of Dirty Dancing.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, and the original was set like in 1963. The sequel is going to be in the 90s, having hip hop music, some of the original music and stuff like that. Now, they're supposedly starting filming around now. So that's about a year ahead of when it's supposed to come out. Now, do I think it's going to be a success? I mean, that's what is on everyone's mind. First of all, they had to figure out what are they going to do with the character Patrick played, Johnny Castle, right? What are they going to do with that? So apparently the script is written and they sent it over to Patrick's widow, Lisa, and she read it and she gave the okay. From what I understand, and you know, I'm just going off stuff that's on the internet, so who knows? But from what I understand, there's no flashbacks of the character Johnny Castle. It's going to be a whole new story with Jennifer Grey as sort of baby grandma, because I mean, she played a 17-year-old almost 40 years ago when she herself is 66 right now. So, I mean, if you ask the hardcore fans of Patrick Swayze, and he has many all over the world, I will tell you that. If you ask the fans, what do you think they would say? Some of them, they're not even going to go watch it, okay? Because it's like, they feel it's like, Patrick's not in it? Nope, no good. And it's disrespectful, yeah. So, you know, you have all that kind of thing. And there are some fans who are going to go see it out of curiosity or because Dirty Dancing really was a phenomenon and influenced so many people in so many positive ways all over the world. Yeah, if there's something of Dirty Dancing in it, I'm going to go see it. Now, I really think the people making the movie are hoping they're going to get the younger generation involved in it. You know, they're going to get them, they will like it, and this and that.
Hoping to get a new audience and everything like that. Just really quickly, Sue, I know that one of the things that it just concluded here in Durham has been going on for years is the American Dance Festival. So there is a big interest in dance. Papa Joe Davis used to live here and all along those lines before he passed almost, I want to say it's less than 10 years ago and everything like that. But there is a rich dance community here in Durham. I know there's a rich dance community in California as well. So one of the things I was always curious about is how much of the dancing did Patrick Swayze actually do? Because like I said, I know that there are some people that do have dance doubles, but then there are people like Fred Astaire that did their own dancing and everything like that. So I was just wondering how much of the dancing did Patrick Swayze do, and was he an avid dancer?
Well, he started dancing when he was 2 or 3 years old at his mom's dance studio. And he was with some really prestigious dance companies. So Dirty Dancing was really the first, quote, dance movie that he did. On purpose, he was waiting because he wanted to build himself up as an actor and be known for that. So for Dirty Dancing, yes, he did all the dancing. He had to dance down for everything in that movie, except if you remember the finale scene where he jumps off the stage and does all this fancy stuff. That's really in his mind was the real dancing he did in the whole movie. But no, there was no stunt doubles or any dancer doubles or anything like that. They tried to, do you know the scene with the log over the water or the lake? You know, that was filmed in North Carolina at Lake Laura. Anyways, they tried to have him use a stunt double for dancing on the log, and he refused. And then he had a bad knee since a football injury in high school, and he fell off the log. He injured himself, and this and that. Well, Jennifer Grey had a stunt double for that part of that scene. I got to interview her for my last book. It's really cool. But no, he was an amazing dancer. He ended his dance career because of that football injury I mentioned. He just said, can't do this, and then he, went into the acting. So yeah, his mom, Patsy, I'll just throw this in real fast, was a renowned dancer, choreographer, and most of all, a dance teacher. Taught many people who became professionals, like Debbie Allen, Tommy Lee, some of these other people. So, yeah, he was, he used to say he was brought up on the stage and in dancing because from the time he was a baby, he was at his mom's dance studio, whatever, with a babysitter or whatever. He just loved dancing and music right from the start.
Yeah, it sounds amazing and everything like that. I know that Michael remembered Baba Chuck Davis as well. As a matter of fact, it's hard to believe, Michael, but it'll be next year around Mother's Day will be the 10th year since Baba Chuck Davis passed away and everything like that. So it's 2017 when he passed away, and he helped bring African dance here to this area as well as to other parts of the country. And he used to go regularly to some of the African nations and all in that space. I want to say he went to Ghana, and I want to say there was a couple of other ones that he went to as well. One of the things I talk about on this show, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Eddie, as everybody else on the panel, is this notion of playfulness and everything like that. I sometimes think that we, as a country, get away from this notion of playfulness because we want to get into the rat race of the world and everything along those lines. And I know that even during the pandemic, speaking of during the pandemic, I had a friend that had me as part of the Funky Eye Puppets, which was a audio troupe that dealt with a lot of play acting and all along those stands. And IPC stands for I Paint Creatures, and you can find him on Instagram, was the founder of it. And he had like this whole narrative of this whole made up world and everything like that. But I know when we would do rehearsals, he would sometimes get us to do improv and other things in order to get out of our work mindset, and that mindset where we are still worried about the day-to-day adult life. So I just wanted y'all's thoughts around that, because I sometimes think that even our schools don't do a good enough job of encouraging playfulness because they want people to be serious about going into the work world and everything like that. But what's your take on that, Eddie? And I'd love to hear from you as well, Michael, and you, Sue, as well. But I'd just love to hear y'all's thoughts around this notion of, are we encouraging kids and even adults to be playful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why the notion of other therapy works really well, because they naturally look so playful, and people resonate with that too. And partially I went into art, or I recognized the power of healing art. Part of because I was in healthcare, and I saw so many people got burned out, and that's because we are lacking playfulness. We got more and more serious, especially when the computer system came in. It was more focused on productivity, efficiency, so less and less play in between. So it's like we have to see more and more patients, and we have to see as many as patients as possible. We have to increase the cost effectiveness as much as possible. So we are squeezing the kind of play, little leeway, the kind of in between time out of the whole thing. Like everything has to be productive and efficient. So, but before that, the old-fashioned doctors, they only, I know I worked with many doctors who were into their 90s, and they were still enjoying seeing patients because it was more about relationships, not about money. These old-fashioned family practice doctor would know the whole family, the grandparents to the grandbabies, great-grandkids, they all see the same doctors. He knows everybody. So instead of going straight to, what's your symptoms and what are you taking? What kind of medication you're taking? These doctors don't talk about that. Like, how's your grandkids doing? So how's your work? How's your vegetable going? So it was like play. It was kind of something other than the essence. It's outside of work. And I think that's, that the reason we're getting more burned out is because we don't have those plays. It was more work, seriousness. And that's what we can learn from sea otters or animals, wild animals, for that matter. They just play, they're carefree, they don't worry about productivity, efficiency. I think that's why we love pets, because they're just totally about connection. They love you. and they play. So none of the others or animals will be looking at your iPhone, and then maybe some cats would play with the the iPad game, but they won't be looking at the emails or any of that. So I think definitely we need to get the play back into schools and adults' life too. So I think that's what, I got really involved in the prevention of a burnout for healthcare professionals. And it was more about, let's talk about something other than medicine. What do you do? Do you go dancing? Do you paint? Do you sing and dance? I think we started to bring that back in and then start communicating and connecting that way outside of the main work of medicine. So I just want to hear, from other people too. But that's my take on play.
Yeah, I love that. What's your take, Mike?
Well, you know what? I don't want to say I'm a big kid, but I collect Hot Wheel cars. I still skateboard at 60. I snow ski, whitewater rafts. So I do all those things, So for me, I try to have a good balance of work life, and creativity with, my chairs. So I do all that, even when I DJ, for years I DJ for free around Durham because I wanted to just share my love for music with the community. So I would say, hey, listen, if you got a birthday party, I come play for free. So I did that for a long time, before I even got to the point where I was making, making a little money or, before I had a name. But yeah, I really enjoy, my second life outside of work too. So yes, play is very important for me too.
Yeah. What about you, Sue? How important is play to you? It sounds like you even incorporated it in some of your fan club work with the Patrick Swayze associations and stuff like that. So how important is play to you?
It is very important. And I was a psych social worker in the ER for over 30 years. And I'm out. I left in 2022. I focused more on my writing. My writing can be really fun. And I really enjoy connecting with other people from all over the world who, yeah, they happen to be fans of Patrick, but you talk about other things too, and it's really fun for me. And looking at Patrick, I don't think many people knew this, but he played a lot of jokes on different sets and stuff like that, pranks, and he had a really good sense of humor. And if you look at Dirty Dancing, he and Jennifer Grey improvised on some of the stuff, and it ended up in the movie. It was kind of playful stuff, so I find that really interesting, and I just really enjoy. I've always been an avid moviegoer, so I mean that's how I saw Dirty Dancing way back then. But I just find watching movies and stuff like that really entertaining and fun as well. And I did like the days better when more of the movie theaters were open. We didn't have all the streaming and stuff like that because sort of missed the audience being together and having that reaction together. I will say that because they closed the 3 movie theaters near me that I used to really enjoy going to. But you get used to streaming, and then you go online and you talk with people. I had they're doing the remake of Roadhouse. Well, actually they're doing a sequel to the remake. Okay, so I had a post photo of Patrick from the original Roadhouse. Maybe you guys saw it. Anyways, it got a big response, and everyone started talking about, yeah, that remake was just terrible and this and that, and how good he was. I don't know. It's just fun to have, for me, to have interactions like that with people. And I've got people who don't even speak English. You can get that translation off Facebook, or people, a lot of the people in Germany do speak English. It's just really cool to have that piece.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everything like that. Hey, Eddie. One of the things I know that I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and we were talking and reflecting, even kind of to what Sue was saying about the old days of the movies, because even here in Durham, where me and Michael are, there were some of these movie theaters that were very cheap movie theaters, and you could go see a movie for like $1 or something like that. We used to have dollar movie theaters. I think Yorktown was one. There was definitely one that was over there in other parts of Durham. I think there was one not that far from Northgate, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, even in California, do you have memories of those days when you could go see $1 movie or maybe a $2 movie or something along those lines? And were you a big movie buff? Because I know back in the day, if you could go to a dollar movie, and some of these were very commercial, successful movies and everything like that, but they were in these discount houses, for lack of a better term.
I didn't grow up here. I came here 32 years ago, so I don't know how it was in the US here. But certainly when I first came here, that was the first movie I saw around here was When Harry Met Sally, and that about that time. So I don't remember how much it was, but it wasn't certainly not that expensive. But in Japan, definitely when I was going to see movies, and I can't remember where I saw Dirty Dancing, but I loved it. I can't remember if I saw it in the US or in Japan. I can't remember, but I watched it multiple times because I loved it so much. I love them both, Jennifer Grace and Patrick Swayze. And by the way, I have not painted them yet. I have like 100 more otters to paint, and so many people request different otters or personalized otters. So definitely, I probably want to do. Patrick is kind of lifting her up, the iconic moment. Probably I want to do that maybe when the movie comes out. So I have to be a little bit careful with the copywriting things. I have to talk to my copyright lawyer about that kind of thing. But in my little gallery, I can show that, and people just come in. As long as I don't publish it, I don't think it's a big deal. But anyway, that's definitely on my list of things to do. But I don't, I really do have fond memory. I love movies. So, maybe the very first movie I saw might have been Exorcist. I saw that in Japan, and then my piano teacher took two of us. I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old or something like that, and then we were saying who's gonna scream first, and we kind of bet who's gonna scream first because it's supposed to be a scary movie. Since then, I just loved all the movies coming from the US, so we were watching with the subtitle because I didn't speak English back then. But definitely love movies, and it used to be nice when it was so inexpensive.
That makes sense, everything like that. Eddie, really quickly before I get to Michael and his thoughts around those dollar movies, because I know that by the time he came here from Arkansas, I think we still had those dollar movie theaters. But before I get to that, Eddie, what are some of the stereotypes that you think people have about Japan, and some of the stereotypes that you had to conquer when you moved here and all along those lines? Because I know that people have these stereotypes of the different Asian cultures, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean. I was just wondering what are some of the things that surprised you in terms of people's thoughts about how Japanese people were?
It's kind of interesting as a Japanese or maybe even Asian. I'm in California, so I'm kind of maybe fortunate because they're used to Asians and Japanese too. So I haven't had too much kind of a negative experience. Very few. I have some, but very few. But it's kind of interesting when I say I'm from Japan. Usually, a couple of things. But Asian in general, people think I'm smart. Automatic. Oh, you're Asian. You're smart. You study hard. You're diligent. Hardworking person. So that's a nice stereotyping. Although not everybody fits in that category, but it's kind of interesting. I was talking to other friends who lived and worked in Vietnam, and then they had the same notion. Oh, you're Japanese, you're hardworking, you're smart, instantly. So I thought that was kind of funny, positive prejudice, so to speak. But I can take advantage of that. I let them think that way. I'm not gonna deny it. So I thought that was interesting. But some other things like, do you cook Japanese food, or do you practice Zen, or so that was some kind of funny. The other people, a lot of people who were stationed in Japan right after the war, they just have so much fond memory. So they asked me, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, I love Japan. Most of the people I meet, they just love Japan, whether they were stationed or they just visit Japan. Like, oh, you got good food. It's so safe and everything is efficient and people are nice. And so for the most part, I'm treated very well. So I just kind of have to keep up to the expectations.
Because I know the other stereotype that some people have is that Japanese, and particularly Japanese women, are subservient and everything like that. But I've seen some Japanese women that aren't always as subservient as people think that they are, and everything like that. So that's one of those stereotypes that sometimes people think that they are always going to be meek and subservient. But I've seen some Japanese women that don't always follow that stereotype.
I think the Japanese women who are here in the U.S. probably got out of Japan because of that. So we probably don't fit in that category.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a whole lot of sense in that sense and all of that. Hey, Michael, do you remember those dollar movie theaters and all along those lines when you first moved here from Arkansas? Because like I said, I do remember Yorktown, and I want to say there was one that was over there near Northgate of Walltown. I can't remember which neighborhood it was, but there were a couple of dollar movie theaters. But we also had drive-ins, and drive-ins don't hardly exist anywhere in the country, but they do exist in a few places here and there.
It's funny you mentioned that because yes, I've been to Yorktown. Yorktown was here when I first got here. There was one way up on North Duke Street, right at the river, at the Eno River. There was one. There was one over in Raleigh that I used to go to too. Now that one stayed open until the late '90s.
Wow.
So that one stayed open, pretty late. But I'm a movie fanatic. I've been to Lake Lure trying to find a spot where Patrick did that spot, did his part in the movie there. So I've been to Lake Lure. My family, when we travel, if there's a movie that my daughter has seen and we're going to drive through that state, she wants to try and find a spot, where the movie was. She wants to go to the high school or to the lake or to the wherever it is. She wants to go to that spot. We try and turn our vacations around movie things. If there's something that we can do. So yes, movies are very good. Very big.
Got a lot of movie history because Durham was shot here and everything like that. I want to say that there were several other movies that were shot here, and of course, Stranger Things was based on the Duffy brothers, who are from or had ties to Jordan High School, and there was a couple of other various movies, including one of Morgan Freeman's movies. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but I know it was shot here, and there was a couple of other movies. I think The Program was shot here, and definitely a couple of other ones, including one of Colin Firth's movies was shot here in Durham and all along those lines. So there's definitely been those ties, and even in terms of like stops. I don't know, Michael, have you been to the Ava Gardner Museum? Because that's on my bucket list. I've yet to go to it, but I know it's not that far from here. And Ava Gardner was a major Hollywood star, and there's a museum. I think it's in Smithfield or somewhere in that general area.
It's down east. Yeah. I have not been there, but I have seen reviews of it. I've seen it, on the TV. Whenever you interview people who've been, so I've been there. Also, for instance, the movie and the movie Cars, the cartoon car, the movie Cars. So it's based on a gas station in Hooks, Texas. So when we got to Hooks, my daughter had to go to that gas station. So there's a replica of the record Mater record is outside the gas station. So those are instances where we've been to places where movies have been shot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I do on this show quite often, and I know that the network founders, Nick and Kim, are aware of this and all on those lines. I'm of the a couple of things. One, they are big supporters of education and just education in general, and they feel that there are a number of things that should be taught that aren't taught in our public school systems. Like they would love to see fiscal literacy, and y'all have kind of alluded to that even in your own careers, you, Sue, as an author, and both you, Michael, and Eddie, as artists. But they wish that there would be more courses taught about fiscal literacy and kind of the notions of things that you should know in a life if you're going in the creative businesses. And there's a reason they call it show business, because business is part of the title and all along those lines. So I just wondered, for all three of you, at what point did you realize that it was a business, and how did you approach learning the business aspect of what you were doing and everything like that? Because that's something that is definitely one of the themes of this show, is the notion of we need to understand the business aspect of it. And sometimes our schools don't do a great job of teaching that, and we have to learn on our own. So, at what point, Eddie, did you learn the business of art business?
Right. Yeah, that was the hardest part because I thought I was going to be a nurse practitioner, work for hospital until the retirement age. Uh, but but because of what I mentioned earlier, I retired early because I just could no longer do, the full time, and they tried to force me to be full time. So I just all of a sudden, without much preparation, I became a full time artist. And I know how to paint, but I don't know how to sell. But fortunately, I've been always like a self improvement junkie. I've been taking lots of classes, self improvement, spirituality, and along the line, I started to think, I have to sell. So I started to take some business classes all online. But also I needed to find the right business coach and the classes. And then because I was taking lots of spiritual courses, and they kind of refer me, if you want to learn to get more clients and how to sell, you can kind of try taking these courses and that courses. I got introduced to more, so to speak, spiritual business coaches, and there were a number of them. And then because I wouldn't do too well go to MBA classes or anything like that, so a couple of things, so those teachers taught me selling is not like the used car salesman. You can sell with love, sell with sincerity, sell what you love. You'll just, fall in love with your own products, or it has to be, the products that you love and you sincerely want to share. So I just kind of changed the notion. It's a lot about mindset shift. That number one, selling is not something being pushy. It's just sincerely you're sharing your love and encouraging other people to enjoy the experience as well. So I needed to shift that notion completely. So sales, marketing, same thing. I'm just a messenger of something that I believe in. And also, some people, some of my coaches said that, the selling business and the spirituality don't have to be the two separate things. You could be spiritual and be a good business person. So those, like, a little by little over 2-3 years since I retired, kind of came together, and finally everything kind of fell into places. So I feel really comfortable, producing. And sort of what Michael said, I'm just playing. I'm painting. Painting is my playtime. So pretty much the whole business is my playtime. It doesn't feel like work. I just enjoy painting, and people come here to Carmel by the Sea from all over the world. I'm just sharing my experience, and people have fun with it, whether they buy or not. That's a secondary thing. I just share and have a real conversation with them. So I'm just sharing my joy. And so I think that way, I think I'm pretty successful for right now, sharing my art and make people happy. So that's sort of my business model right now, just sharing my joy and make people happy. And in return, I'm happy too. So that's my take on it.
That makes sense. Michael, what's your take on it and everything like that? Because one of the things that I know about you, Michael, is that kind of what Eddie was talking about is that you definitely have a business model, but I also know that you also consider yourself very much of a spiritual person as well, because I've always known you to be associated with your church also and some of that church community. So I'm thinking that you probably tie some of your spirituality into your business model, kind of the way that Eddie does as well and everything like that. So how do you cope with the whole notion of the art side, the business side of art? Did Michael freeze? Michael might have frozen. Yep, I think Michael froze. He'll come back hopefully and everything like that. Eddie, how do you deal with it and everything like that? Because you just recently started with your book and everything like that. So how do you deal with the whole notion of the business aspect?
You mean Sue or?
I mean, Sue. No,
Oh, well, I have 5 books, and it's been an evolution, because I was so naive when I first started way back 2007 writing my first book, but I did get an attorney right away because I knew that writing about a real live celebrity Lionsgate's movie Dirty Dancing. I had to educate myself to the realities of doing something like that. You know, even if I wasn't doing something wrong, I could still get sued. So, you know, I had that attorney for almost 20 years, I want to say, and he retired. And I still listen to this day, but I really learned a lot. But when I retired from my job too in 22, I had more time to really take a lot of online classes and learn much more about the business side and this and that. Because at first I thought, I'm just going to write what I want, and you know, it's my passion, and I'm trying to, um, you know, sort of help preserve Patrick's legacy and get his messages out there and stuff like that. I'm just going to do what I want, so be it. But you know, when you write your Amazon book description, so you use certain words, you know, the metadata and this and that, and you know, and then you try to figure out how you're gonna, you know, I want to get the message out, but I also want to sell some books, you know. So how do you balance that? And you know, what do you charge for the book? You know, so as time has gone on, it's been an evolution for me, and I think I'm able to reconcile both sides better than before.
Yeah, that makes sense. Michael, I had asked you earlier, and I think you got cut off, the notion of how you deal with the business side of the art world, but also tie in the spiritual side. 'Cause like I said, one of the first places I met you was your affiliation with certain churches and all along those lines. So I just wondered how you balance that kind of spirituality aspect of your life as well as the art business aspect of it.
Yeah, well, number one, I still struggle with a balance because I want to produce so many chairs that I have a hard time stopping to deal with the business aspect of it. So sometimes I have to stop with the chairs. But I collect chairs and do chairs out of my garage, man, out in my studio, but not stop and do the other parts of it too. So that's something that I still struggle with. I must say, on that end. But as far as spirituality, I can remember when I first moved here. My mom, before she passed, she told me that because I was DJing, so by then I was still, you know, I was up doing late nights. And she said, if your DJing is getting in the way of you going to church the next day, then it's a problem. So she said, you know, so in other words, hey, if you're able to kind of, you know, keep those two, you know, keep them both going and not let one go or the other, then she's okay with it. So with my chairs and my furniture, you know, I still make sure that I'm still one with God, and you know, instead I still pray, you know, still worship, you know, the way that I need to do, you know, in that aspect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Eddie, what exactly is a joy reset? Because I know that's one of the things you talk about, that kind of down to spirituality as well, because it sounds like it's a creative mindfulness technique and everything like that. But what do you consider a joy reset? And maybe your painting is your joy reset. But what are some of the other ways that people can reset their joy?
There are many different methods, but what I call joy reset is basically people need to kind of go back to posing, like a little sea otters kind of floating on its back and posing, so not working really hard. They do work hard to dive into them and forage and get the clams and sea starfish and all of that. But as human beings, we're always scrolling, doing the computer. So number one thing is to, from time to time, you need to stop. And you know, especially when somebody's upset about something and have a really strong reaction to certain things, like you know, worried about something or having some issues. So it comes from my spirituality, and I learned this little method, created this method when I was really very little, just by accident. So just kind of stop, pause, and then remember. This is what I learned. Is sort of coming from the higher power. I learned that I can always change my thoughts, change my emotion, change the way I look at things. So refocus. So remember that I can always change this. And not everybody, realize that you are in a strong emotion like sadness or anger, and just kind of immersed into it. But I learned that I can always change it. That's the message I got. So stop and then remember that I can shift this negativity into positivity in a few seconds, within a minute. And then the third part is to actually do the refocusing. So whatever the narrow focus of the problem, you can shift it to something else. That could be, looking at my kind of cute little otter. So I have this book of the various otter images. So that's part of the reason I made this, so people can look at this cute things and beautiful things and just take your mind off, take the focus off the narrow problem and look at something else, something visual, the nature, art, something beautiful. Using five senses. This is the part people can be creative and find out what works for people. It could be smelling something nice, aromatherapy, or something physical. I often teach breathing techniques too. So it could be breathing technique or just jumping up and down. So many different parts to it. So, but the idea is the same. You just take the focus off your problem, because when you're worried or angry or sad, you're focused on that one little thing. But if you shift your focus to something else or expand it, have a little bird's eye view, and then you see the problem as something much smaller, or problem is not the problem anymore. And then you just kind of stay in the more relaxed, more expanded state. And then before you go back to whatever you were doing before. So the whole process just takes like a minute. So just stop and remember that you can change this. And the third part is refocus, whatever that part might be, box breathing, or which is what I often use it. And then the last part is release, and then kind of reset. So I call it PRR method, the PRRR, pause, and remember, refocus, and release. That the purr, like a cat's little purr. So you could just purr for 60 seconds if you want to. That makes you feel good too. So I can do a whole workshop, because there are so many different ways to do it, using five senses and taste, sound, auditory, kinesthetic, and you can go out, go for a walk, lots of different things. But the main part is by pausing and refocusing and shift the focus to something else off of the problem. You can just shift the mindset, and you have a so much better perspective, and then the problem is not so much problem anymore. And this has been working all my life for like 50 years. So at least for me, it's working, and I'll teach that to other people, and it seems to be working.
I think it's working for a lot of people. I saw this great quote, and I know that Michael will like this, because I think he's a fan of this particular actor that I'm going to mention and everything like that. But it's kind of what you were just talking about, Eddie, and everything like that. But I am a fan of the work of Denzel Washington, and Denzel Washington has had a quote that a lot of people have been using for several weeks. He says, just because you're doing a lot more doesn't mean you're getting a lot done. Don't confuse the movement with progress. And so apparently he's highlighting a common mistake that many people make, confusing busyness with productivity. Doing more tasks does not automatically mean you're achieving more goals, and constant movement can create the illusion of progress. But without direction, efforts can become wasted energy, and a person may answer hundreds of emails, attend countless meetings, or spend long hours working, yet still avoid the most important tasks to create real results. So the article that I was reading says the quote is not an argument against hard work. Instead, it's a reminder that hard work must be combined with focus and strategy and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts around that, because definitely when I heard that quote earlier and I was just thumbing through the internet and everything like that, I was going, that's a very profound quote, Mr. Denzel Washington. But I just wanted your thoughts around that, Michael, because even what you were saying, sometimes you get caught in that trap of not having the focus as much as you would like to and everything like that.
I mean, ditto. I mean, there's nothing I can add to that, man, because that's it. That's exactly what my sentiments. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great sentiment and everything like that. Another thing that I talk about in this show, we get ready to wrap up in another 15 or 20 minutes and all along those lines, is this notion of the imposter syndrome and all in that space. And I know that whether it has been jobs or romances, as Michael knows, I'm still in that single space and all along those lines. I know that sometimes I talk myself out of opportunities, whether it's job opportunities or relationship opportunities, and all in that space. And I'm sure even in your artwork and in your book work, you probably talked yourselves out of opportunities. So how do you three deal with that notion of the imposter syndrome? Because that's something that is a strong theme within this online dinner party with the many guests, and I've had hundreds that I've had, and we've had different people who have different philosophies. Some have definitely headed straight on, like tacking it like a bull in a china shop, to use that narrative, and other people are doing the avoidance method and everything like that. But I just wondered, how have you dealt with that imposter syndrome? Because we've all faced it at one point or another. You just recently became an artist, Eddie, and everything like that. So there were probably times that you were not as confident as you would like to be about your artwork. And I don't know your relationship status, and that's neither here nor there, everything like that. But I do know that in relationships, we sometimes can kind of hurt ourselves and all in that space. So how do you deal with that whole notion of the imposter syndrome?
Definitely, I suffered from that for a long time as a healthcare providers, but also as an artist at the beginning. You know, I started painting or drawing about 17 years ago, and probably the first, I don't know, 12 or 13 years, I couldn't call myself an artist. Partially because I was a nurse practitioner and I was just doing my art on the side, and just a little hobby. But now I am a full-time artist, and it's a gradual thing, and that's part of the mindset that I really have to work on, and have this limiting beliefs, and it's hard to be a full-time and a successful artist. But little by little, now that I have my own gallery and that people recognize me, like, I'm surprised that Michael see my work. It was kind of in disbelief. How did he see me? Anyway, so I still have that too. But more people recognize me and my work. And so in my little town of Carmel too, people started to recognize, oh, I saw your work at such and such place. So it's a kind of gradual thing. But I also, using my own method, whenever I have this, oh, who do you think you are? Or you're not as good as such and such. Or whenever you compare myself with somebody else, there's always somebody better than me. And so I kind of stopped doing that several years ago. And especially I have my own niche and nobody else is doing what I'm doing. So this is my thing. And then I have my tribe. I have people who love what I do, not other people's work. This is not what I do. It's not for everybody. And but I have my own tribe, and they just love my thing. So so now I have confidence that, like, I'm doing my thing, coming from my heart. This is very authentic. So I just really coming to terms with who I am and what I do, what I'm capable of. Oh, that's where kind of Ikigai come from. So now I found that what I love to do, and I'm good at it. And then the obviously some people want it, the world needs it. And then I can make a living doing this. So I'm just kind of totally aligned with what I'm doing. And then I can sustain my life doing this way. I'm just having a great old time doing it. So everything, what I do, what I say, what I create, and how I interact with the people is totally aligned. So now I really don't have to compare myself with anybody else. So I'm just me, and I'm the creator of Art Therapy, and I'm sticking to it. So I just love being myself right now and doing what I'm doing. I'm having the best life right now.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. And Michael, how do you deal with that imposter syndrome? And even what Eddie was just saying, I do know that a lot of artists sometimes get too caught up in making comparisons and trying to compare to other artists and everything like that. And I sometimes think that that is a trap that some artists fall into and everything like that. But I think that they need to be confident in their artwork. As you know, my dad is an artist, and he's very confident in his artwork, whether it's his gourds or whether it's his photographs and a number of other things that he's done. And folks can check it out at bambooturtle.com if they're interested in seeing Jim Lee's artwork and everything along those lines. But he's always been confident, and I don't think that he really compares himself to other artists. But I have seen artists that are too busy trying to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better term, and everything like that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I've worked in a shop for a while, I was able to kind of, the more that I stayed in the shop, I got comfortable around furniture. I could talk about, Victorian, I could talk about mid-century, I could talk about all the different styles and eras. That allowed me to kind of get a little more comfortable with talking about, the art. Because the art is just what I do, my expression. So I don't compare myself to anybody else, because if I'm collaborating with somebody else and we collaborate in styles, we're merging two totally different things together. It may come out to be something totally different, that can't be compared to either one. Just recently, I was doing a collaboration with a group out of Winston-Salem, and it was graffiti, and we were putting graffiti on chairs, graffiti artwork. And I posted it online, and I had some comments about, very negative comments about the artwork. I saved it. Because I was really happy to see it, because my art and my expression in chairs are not for everybody, and the fact that person did not appreciate what she saw just gave me more fuel, because that told me that what I'm doing is it's cutting edge. There's not a big market for it. So I knew that I was in the right space because of that comment. So that was, matter of fact, I saved it. It's on my phone now. I saved that comment because I always go back to it. If I have doubts or whatever, about a piece that I'm about to do, I always go back to it and I pull it back up to look at it.
That makes sense. Hey, Michael, before I get to Sue and everything along those lines and hear her thoughts around the imposter syndrome, could you just talk a little bit about North Carolina's role in the furniture market? Because a lot of people don't realize that we are a furniture capital, actually an international furniture capital, and there have been some major African-American furniture makers. I'm thinking about like Thomas Day and others as well. But could you just share a little bit for our global audience, because Pod TV is a global network, about the importance of North Carolina as a furniture capital?
Yeah, well, places like Thomasville, High Point, Hickory, all in North Carolina, and those are major players, or were at one point major players in furniture making. I've had a few pieces to be featured in High Point at the International Furniture Mart. So I've had a few pieces to be featured there a few years back. Just recently I went to Thomas Day, who was a freedman back in the early 1800s, who was a freedman, a black man who had a furniture shop, a company in Milton, North Carolina. And he made chairs, and he made pieces for people in Southern Virginia, on the East Coast, all the way up to Philadelphia, New York, and for a lot of pieces for the University of North Carolina. I think they had a few pieces that he had done then too. So yes, I had a chance to visit his studio about a month ago, and I really enjoyed it because that was a man who took a passion that he learned from his dad and took it to another level at a time when there was no other black person doing it. He was the only one doing it, and was very successful at it.
Yeah, and just really quickly along those same lines, and then I'm gonna, like I said, get to Sue and her thoughts and everything. But I also know that there is a company here in North Carolina, and you've probably heard of them. I think it's called Nugget, but it is kind of bringing the notion of play as part of the furniture market and everything like that. So they actually have furniture that they want kids to jump on and everything like that. So it's a local company, and they are actually trying to get people to. As a matter of fact, I think my boss is Haytacker, she's got a 3-year-old. I think she's got some of their furniture, but yeah, the company is called Nugget, and it's basically like furniture that is encouraging kids, particularly young kids, to jump on it and play with it and everything like that. But it is a North Carolina-based furniture company, and all along those lines. So you can actually look at the company. It's Colorful Play Furniture, and it's nuggetcomfort.com. But I do know that they are based here, and their whole notion is furniture that kids can play on, jump on, make pyramids out of, and all along those lines. So definitely this is some of their stuff right there, and all along those lines. So that is Nugget, and that is their company that is based here in North Carolina and everything like that. It's furniture that's play furniture.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was online a few days ago and saw a couch that had a arm that came out of the back of it that was actually a punching bag. So the arm of the couch came up and came over, and you could punch it as a punching bag. Then when you're done with it, you can lower it back down and put it back behind the back of the couch. So when I saw that, I said, "Oh wow!" So of course, I got some ideas now that I want to try and see what I can incorporate play into my pieces now. So I'm gonna see what I can do to kind of incorporate play more in my pieces. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's, like I said, I want to say that they have bases throughout. I know one of the bases is definitely based here in North Carolina. They may have other bases as well and everything like that. But just really quickly, how do you deal with this whole notion of the imposter syndrome? Because it is something that we all face. I'm sure you even had to deal with it yourself as well.
Yeah, because, my profession was really a social worker, not an author. And I mean, I had dabbled in writing and stuff like that, but I never took any formal classes, at the university or whatever. So, I had to sort of train myself like, yeah, you can do this. You didn't have to get a major in journalism or whatever, writing and stuff like that. And then, so I got more confident as the more I learned, and I feel like I've improved my, writing skills and stuff like that. And then, you're always going to have critics. Like there's a few people like, who do you think you are? You think you're Patrick Swayze's best friend? Stuff like that. So you have to just kind of keep going. And I think what Eddie said before about coming from the heart, because that's my writing. And when I get in the zone, that is like the coolest thing, and then it's just extra when people give compliments or say, yeah, that made me cry, or that made me I learned more things about Patrick I didn't know, or whatever. That's just that's just extra. And I just have to feel satisfied within myself. And basically, each of my books, I felt like I've done a better job. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I deal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One thing that I actually haven't done this before because I love doing new things every time that I do one of these shows and all along these lines. It has happened sometimes naturally, but this time I'm going to kind of instigate it. And then there's questions that I ask everybody as we get ready to end. And like I said, we'll end within the next 15 to 20 minutes. But I'm actually going to open the floor. So, Michael, do you have any questions for either Sue or Eddie, and vice versa? Eddie, do you have any questions for Michael and Sue vice versa, and all along those lines? So I'm opening the floor for y'all as y'all have been listening to the conversation to ask questions of each other. And then also I've got a question that I ask everybody at the end. So I'll start with you, Eddie, if you got any questions that you have for either Michael or Sue, and then I'll go to Michael, and then I'll end with Sue, and then I'll get to the questions that I ask everybody at the end.
I have a question for Michael, because I've seen, I can't remember which country, it might have been London or Singapore, but I've seen an exhibit in a museum of chairs. But most of those chairs, you cannot sit on it. So it was a purely art form. Mm-hmm. It kind of looks like chairs, but it could be upside down or have something sticking out, so there's no place to actually sit. So your chairs, are those some place people can sit, or is it more like a pure art form?
So it all depends on what it is I'm doing. So the chair that I talked about, that was my homage to the Bull City. That chair by Durham. That chair has an actual set of horns around the back of it that's attached to the chair. Bull horns are attached to the chair. So that one has bull horns on it. The chair that I did with the history of black of African Americans in the United States. That one has nails protruding from it from all angles. So the nails represent pain. So that chair, you can't sit on that chair either. So those two chairs would be a perfect example of chairs as art versus function.
Mm-hmm.
So so if on my Instagram page, I have examples of chairs I have done, custom chairs I do for restaurants. I have a tribe. You mentioned the word tribe. That's a great word. I have people that know what I do, and they'll buy almost everything that I do only because they know that it came from me and they like my style. So those people are my tribe. I don't care about anybody else, that kind of stuff. So I have some chairs that I do that are function, but even with those function chairs, my style is not a one or two, a monotone color or two tone. It may have 8 different colors on that one chair. Each panel may have maybe a different color, a different design, a different print. So I'm using prints, zebra prints along with polka dots. I may have a scene of Eiffel Tower on the back of the chair, with a leopard on the front. So it's those kinds of things kind of represent my style.
Great. And I just want to have one comment real quick. So what Michael says, when you have a negative comments about my art, I also treasure that too. And it's sort of like a badge of honor. Somebody says something, negative about it. So it's like now I'm a real artist. It offended somebody. Somebody says, some famous artist said, if your art doesn't offend somebody, it's not art.
That's
so
it.
It doesn't have a strong enough message.
That's right.
Just wanted to throw that in.
That's right. I must say that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt in, but the chair, the one of the chairs that I talked about earlier, I actually did a show with both of the pieces together, and the guy one of my friends came in and said, "Hey man, one of those chairs is too aggressive. It talks about a whole lot of negative things. It's not fun and insightful. It was." Kind of talk about the negative, parts of our history. And he wasn't offended, but he was able to kind of push it forward, in a public spaces. And he was scared to push it forward because he didn't know how the people come across. So that was one of those examples where, the piece was kind of provocative to point.
Michael, you got any questions for either Eddie or for Sue? And then Sue, I'm going to ask the same question if you got any questions for the two other folks as well. But any questions for either Eddie or Sue?
Yeah. So, Eddie, so were you a Otter fan? I may have missed this, but were you an Otter fan before you started painting otters, or how did your painting, transition to otters?
I'm an animal fan, but I was not an otter fan. I just fell into it because I was struggling to find niche as a newly full-time artist, and I painted everything but otter. Somebody recommended, if you're gonna paint in Monterey Bay area, you better paint otters. Otters would sell. So that's how I got into it. But then when somebody commissioned me to do this Scream Otter, it just clicked. This is it. This is my niche because I can combine sea otters with my love of art history, classic arts, and then put humor in it. So everything came together. So now, of course, I love otters now, but more than before. But that's how I fell into it. So the art came first before my love for otters.
Okay.
Hey, Sue, you got any questions for either Michael or Eddie and everything like that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Michael, I understand the artistic process, but you also have to deal with what materials you're going to use and getting them and things like that. So how does that work?
Well, so I have a storage unit. It's filled to the brim with chairs I picked up from Goodwill and on the street, and sometimes I've been sitting on the chair for 5 years before I find the exact fabric that I want to use for it. Okay. So and also my style, I mix fabrics. I may have a lace front with leather and silk. So I don't, so not only am I mixing prints, I'm also mixing fabrics. So I had a designer tell me that my chairs are not politically correct. They're not correct. I'm not using textbook ways of design. I'm going outside the box. So that's another thing I liked. When I heard that comment, I said, "Good. You know what? I'm doing some things that are different." So yeah, I mix prints, textures, and also colors too. So I don't have a scheme. I go to sleep on it, and when I wake up, I have what I want to do with it. Sometimes I can't come to a conclusion until I go to sleep. When I wake up the next day, I've got the answer.
That makes a lot of sense and everything like that. As we wrap up the show and everything like that, it's been a great conversation. Like I said, I usually have anywhere from 2 to 5 people, and we just learn from each other. That's the whole nature of what the online dinner party is, and I kind of base it on the memories of my parents' VidWiz games when they had the radio station up in Warrenton, and I remember them playing with friends of theirs, and sometimes acquaintances may come by as well, and they would just have fun conversations and all along those lines. So that's how I came up with the notion of the online dinner party and all into that space. But in the questions that I asked all my guests, and I'll go round circle and everything like that, is the Pod TV is a global network, so I always get my guests to give a message of positivity and things in that space. But I also give them a chance to tell how they can be reached and contacted for those people that have been watching and listening. And this airs over the course of several weeks again, because it was airing live as we were going on and everything like that. But I'll also make clips of it and put the clips on TikTok and Instagram and places like that. But definitely, if you can tell how you can be reached and contacted, your message of positivity. And actually, you did it earlier, Michael. You didn't know that this was going to be the question, but you can come up with something else. But I'd love to hear everybody maybe say something that people would be surprised to know that you do as a hobby and all along those lines. So I know Michael had some of those that he mentioned earlier and everything like that, but he might have some others that he didn't get to and everything like that. So I know that I have joked on this show that I had an ex that I was dating that tried to get me to go skydiving. I'm sorry, to me, planes that go from point A to point B, they're not to fall out of. Now, I have thought about doing what Michael mentioned, which is going whitewater rafting and doing some other risky things. But to me, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to fall out of a plane, because that's a lot of thousands of feet to be landed. And if you don't pull the cord at the right time, the whole thing about Bugs Bunny and landing splat, he gets to bounce back because he's a cartoon. But if we land flat, we're gone. So I'm not trying to do that because of the risk and all along those lines. Like I said, I don't mind planes. I love flying to places. I try to go to California or Las Vegas or Washington, or even go overseas, even though I've only been overseas a couple of times in my life. Like once when I was a baby, spent time in Turkey. And then I did go to Puerto Rico and a couple of places on the one cruise that I've been on. But I need to do more international travel. So that's on my bucket list, is more international travel and even more travel in the States. I haven't hit 48 states, Michael. I think I've maybe hit 12. So I got a lot more to go versus your 48 and everything like that. But definitely, if you can share, and like I said, I'll start with Eddie. If you can tell folks how they can reach you, your message of positivity, and maybe an interest or a hobby that people would be surprised to know is an interest or hobby of yours outside of otter therapy.
Okay, so people can reach me at my website best. So it's my name, www.eddiematsumoto.com, EDIMATSUMOTO.com. So you'll see others right there, and you can send me email through there. And also I have a gallery, physical art gallery in Carmel by the Sea, which is in Central California, about 2 hours south of San Francisco. So it's it was listed as the 3rd most romantic places on earth, only after Paris, Venice, and Carmel. So it's a wonderful place to visit. So if you come to Carmel by the Sea, come visit my gallery. So that's how to find me. message for positivity. So my life changed when I started to follow my joy. So whatever that makes you feel better, go into that direction. So if it doesn't feel joyful, you're in the wrong place. You're in misalignment. So when you're aligned with who you are and what you want to position yourself in this life, when it's aligned, it's joyful. So just kind of lean towards something more joyful. It's easier, less effort. That's more natural. So go with the flow. So joy, let joy be your guide. That would be my message. And another thing, maybe the hobby. I'm writing the next book, Auto Therapy Volume 2, and I'm always looking for other jokes. And others are really easy to make jokes. So you ought to do this, or I'm out of here, or other laryngologist, or how to do that. Lots of other jokes. So if anybody have good other jokes that I haven't heard of, send it my way through my website or email. Because I like, the other therapy is all about making you smile, just a moment of simple joy. Just, silly little other jokes, goes a long way.
Well,
So
definitely goes a long way, no doubt about that, and everything like that. I was thinking if I can think of any other jokes. I know that we used to make some, me and Nicole and everything like that, but I can't think of them off the top of my head and everything like that. But just out of curiosity, Eddie, have you ever done any shows on the East Coast? Because I know that Michael said he had seen your artwork, and as you were talking, I was thinking that a friend of the network, Scarlett, she was one of the co-founders of Bit Basil in Miami, and she's actually got a gallery in Miami. And of course, I'm associated with an African American gallery here in Durham, the Hayti Heritage Center. But we sometimes have art and artists that aren't always African American. It's not the commonality, but there are occasions. And matter of fact, the current artist that we've got up at the wall right now was a photographer, and I think he's a white photographer that has pictures of past members of the Blues Festival, because we used to host the Blues Festival for a number of years. So we've actually got about, I think it's 12 pictures, or somewhere between 12 and 16, of Jerry Novak, who used to take pictures of the Bull Durham Blues Festival. So he's got pictures of like Coco Taylor. No, I don't think he's got Coco Taylor, but he's got Isaac Hayes. He's got Bobby Hinn, who just recently passed. It was about local blues artists. He's got Cephas and Wiggins, as well as Fitz Holloway, and John D. Holman, and everything like that. And he's got a Odetta and a number of others that were part of the Bull Durham Blues Festival. But as you were talking, I know that Kim Calhoun is one of our founders, and she's good friends with Scarlett. I'm more of like an acquaintance, but I do know Scarlett as well. But she has a gallery in Miami, so I didn't know if you've ever done Miami shows or even North Carolina shows as well.
Yeah, not yet. I would love to. I've done Orlando, and let's see. I've done lots of online shows, and also I've been doing lots of podcasts and some TV. So, but I don't know where Michael saw me, but I certainly have an online presence, and I've done more than a dozen podcasts. So I don't know. Somewhere maybe we came across there. So that's a mystery to me. But anyway, yeah, love to be in Miami. Want to be on the East Coast. My husband is from East Coast, and actually he goes to Durham a lot. Just like 30 seconds. A question for you, Mark. So do you know that Duke is the birthplace of physician assistant? Is that a known fact? And because he goes there, he's one of the founders of physician assistant programs. So he goes there all the time. So it's a really important city for the physician assistant. So I'm a nurse practitioner, but we're sort of grew up together. The professions developed at the same time. So I think that Duke is very, very important for the history.
And as Michael will tell you, this is the known as the City of Medicine for a couple of reasons. One is the founding part of the Research Triangle Park, which has got a lot of pharmaceutical companies like Burroughs Wellcome, well, actually it's Glaxo Wellcome Klein now, or something along those lines. GSK, but it's also Pfizer and Burroughs Wellcome and Bristol, and a number of others are here and have been here for a number of years. And I want to say, I always forget whether it was Bayer or BC. Do you remember? It's one of those aspirins that we found.
Bayer.
It was Bayer.
Yeah.
And everything like that. And the city of Durham is known as the City of Medicine. So that's actually its nickname, is the City of Medicine, and all along those lines. So yeah, we've got a rich history and a tie to the medicine field and everything like that. So just really quickly, how would you be reached as people are learning more about your love of Patrick Swayze and everything like that? And other than Patrick Swayze, what is a hobby or interest of yours, and also your message of positivity?
Okay, I have a website and it's likedirtydancing.com. Send a message through there, or you can find me on Facebook. Just type my name in, Sue, or sometimes Susan, Susan, first name. Um, Hobby. Okay. Previously, I was a bodybuilder, and I still really enjoy working out. So I would say that's a hobby, and I'm a really avid reader of books, and also still an avid movie, goer, fan, whatever. Now, a message of positivity, I would say one person can make a difference in the world. And I would say follow your passion, follow your dreams, and never give up.
Yep, I love that message and everything like that. Michael, we get ready to end and everything along those lines. Maybe another hobby other than the one that you mentioned earlier and everything like that, as well as your message of positivity and how folks can reach you and get some of these lovely shares of yours.
So on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, you can find me on Vinbon, VINVON Furniture Design. VINVON, Vinbon Furniture Design. That's on all three social media. My email address is wedochairs@gmail.com. I don't have a website because my chairs kind of sell pretty fast, so I don't have inventory. So I just keep a social media present. Someone told me that if I can do what I'm doing for free, then my life has meaning. So I'm gonna keep it like that. I mean, I have DJed for years for free, and also my chairs. I've done chairs and given them away. So both of those things to me are my passion. So I must be doing pretty good.
Yep, and I see you've got a dog in the background because I saw the puppy.
He was kind of tugging at my toes, want to go outside. So I got to get ready to take him outside.
No, I understand that and everything like that. We've actually had some animals that have made cameo appearances. The dog is not the first one. I think there has been a couple of cats that have made cameo appearances, definitely a couple of dogs. And I remember an episode in one of our early episodes. So this is about 5 years ago. I think the woman actually moved back to the West Coast. I think she was either from Oregon or Washington, but she actually had a bird. I think it might have been either a cockatoo or some other bird that flew into the screen. So the bird did made a cameo appearance as well. So we've had all kinds of animals that have made cameo appearances and everything like that. I just remember that she was talking and all of a sudden the bird was like, wait a minute, I need my moment too. So Camille, I need my moment also. So if you're going to be doing these interviews, I need to have my moment in the sun also. So that was actually quite humorous when that happened in that particular case and all along those lines. But yeah, that was quite interesting and it definitely was a fun moment to have happen.
So I think you asked about a hobby. I mean, I mentioned quite a few hobbies that I do already. I can't think of anything else. I mean, when I tour, when I do my road trips, I like to visit a national park and president's houses. So I've been to quite a few of the president's houses around the country, from Pierce in New Hampshire down to Bill Clinton in Hope, Arkansas, Lyndon Johnson over in Texas. So yeah, I've been out, visiting houses as I do my trip. So that's probably one thing that I can say that most people don't know about me.
Oh yeah, visiting those houses, that's amazing. You've probably seen some interesting things in those houses if you've been visiting presidential houses as well as historical houses, because I know that sometimes they can be quite fascinating and all along those lines.
That's right. Yep.
No doubt about it. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. I might have to come in on the other computer, so you may see two versions of me and everything like that, because sometimes the technology doesn't like to work the way that I want it to work and everything like that. So we'll see if that's going to be the case, as I got to do a little bit of juggling. But as I juggle and all in that space, the last thing I'm going to play is actually going to be a videotape of educators and all in that space, because there is definitely this notion of education. And there is a friend of mine or an acquaintance from Oklahoma, and he honors both the teachers as well as the support staff. And I know that my grandmother, grandmother on mom's side was a cafeteria worker. Mom, when I first got out of when I was a youngster, she was a guidance counselor, and I've got friends that have been security officers and a number of other types of officers as well. So before I play this video, and that'll be the last thing to get us totally out of here, who has been a teacher or a support staff person that influenced you? Because that's what this gentleman in Oklahoma was doing. He was honoring not just the teachers, but the support staff, whether that's the coaches or the guidance counselors or the cafeteria workers or the janitors, because we know the janitors sometimes know the secrets of the schools and all along those lines. So who has been somebody that really inspired you from your education background? So I'll start with you, Eddie, and then go to Michael and then end with Sue. So Eddie, who's been somebody that inspired you education-wise?
My teacher, he had me for 3rd and 4th grade. So he was just a very creative person, but also without us kids knowing it, he taught us how to meditate. He was so clever. He just taught us how to meditate without telling us. And just his burst of energy and creativity, the way he does things differently, he thinks outside of the box. So he was the most influential teachers ever for me.
All right, appreciate it. What about you, Michael? Was there somebody that really inspired you as a teacher or a support staff? Maybe it was a coach, maybe it was a guidance counselor, maybe it was a cafeteria worker.
I come from a long line of teachers. My grandfather was a principal. My grandmother was a teacher. My mom was a teacher, and my dad was a history teacher in high school. So I have immediate teachers in my family. So I must give them props. They were probably my biggest influence. Before I talk about somebody else. So my family teachers, my family members who have been teachers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about you, Sue? Is there a teacher or somebody in the support staff, maybe a coach or a librarian, that influenced you when you were in school and everything like that?
Well, I'd have to take it to when I was in the School of Social Work at Wayne State University in Detroit. I got asked to work for the department as a summer job. And so I got to interact with several of the professors every day, and it was just really encouraging to me for that field, but just to think they wanted me to work there, and I learned an awful lot.
Yeah, appreciate that. Well, we're going to play this video to get us on out of here. All three of you were great guests. Hopefully I'll get you back on some future shows as well. I know, Sue, I've had you before, and hopefully Eddie and Michael, you can make an appearance as well, because I do like having duplicate guests sometimes also. But definitely, it's been a fun conversation, and that's what the online dinner party is all about, us learning from each other every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope y'all enjoyed it as well, and we'll get out of here with this particular video from the gentleman out of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you for having me.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people.